Well, I'll dive right into this. And again, my apologies for that momentary delay. My name is Dia McCormick, and I'm the lead solution engineer for Alpha. And my goal today is just to introduce the incredibly powerful new features surrounding disconnected mobile applications now built into Alpha Anywhere. And I like to start my discussion of this with really a question of the decision of what is the right tool to build and deploy mobile applications. And that is really a key feature. There's a lot of different solutions out in the marketplace right now, and they have a wide range of capabilities and sort of abilities. But the reality is there's really a question of what is that right tool for you as a developer, as a business manager, as a leader of a company. And really Alpha is always focused on bringing the right combination of capabilities and technology together to provide what we feel is the right tool. And with the introduction with V3 of our new mobile disconnected capabilities linked with our ability to deploy through PhoneGap, we feel we have a very strong tool for people to build and deploy effective disconnected mobile applications. So what I'd like to do today is start just for a few minutes to give a couple of slides to give you a feel for what Alpha Anywhere is as a development platform. And one of our key philosophies, which is what we call low code, and talk a little bit about the importance and the benefit for you in terms of your ability to deploy these kind of applications. And then I have a very short demonstration to show how simple it is to create a disconnected application, which would have normally taken hours, if not weeks, of programming to put together. So with that, I'll go ahead and dive into it. So what Alpha Anywhere is really a next-generation mobile and web development platform. We use a low-code philosophy, and I'll talk more about that. We have a rich development environment, and we now have seamless mobile app generation, including disconnected capabilities using the PhoneGap product. And I want to walk into each of these and kind of talk a little bit more of that. First and foremost is that we are a mobile and web development platform, basically a single platform that allows you to deploy for the web browser, for the desktop, for mobile devices, whether they're iPads, iPhones, whether they're iPads or iPhone type devices, and also we now support across a range of, are they mobile, Windows Mobile, are they Android devices, or are they iOS, Apple devices. It's one tool that goes across that whole spectrum of deployment options, and therefore you don't have to manage multiple development teams and multiple items with that. Did I lose everybody?
No, you're still here.
Sorry there. I thought that was you calling in on the other line. I'd lost everybody.
Nope, we're all set.
Oh, good. Okay. So really one tool for all the ways you want to deploy, and this is extremely effective in terms of making it cost-effective and productive for you and your team. We are what we call a low-code development platform, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. What low code really means is we like to use kind of the story of the three bears. You have Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear. We like to look at Papa Bear as sort of like your full-blown native development environments such as Xcode or something on the Android platform. Incredibly powerful, but a very large learning curve and also longer development cycle because you're doing everything in a coding fashion. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have what we like to call app generators, who really are good at creating like brochureware in terms of they're easy to pick up, easy to get going, but the problem is you eventually reach a wall where you have to, if you're doing anything more sophisticated, especially if you're talking about disconnected or connecting to databases and other pieces like that on the back end, you reach that wall and all of a sudden you have to stop and restart all over it. And we fit right in the middle, and where low code really allows you to do is you have the ease of use and the quick development of an app generation environment, but we are not an app generation environment. We have a full-fledged development system under the covers that allow you to make sure that when you reach that 80–90% of your application, you can always dive in and do the last 10%. You're never going to be stuck. And more importantly is because we have a very open platform It allows you to integrate and bring in third-party solutions to help integrate into it so that you always can bring in capabilities that may not be native to our features. And we really like that. This really balance is really key. And some of the key benefits is first is productivity. You get a lot of stuff done very quickly, and it allows you to move quickly and use your developers and your developer resources very effectively from a productive standpoint. It allows you to focus on value add. Instead of chasing bugs and spending all your time kind of coding, you can focus on working with your client, your customer, your manager to really develop what they're looking for to be successful from a business standpoint. Responsiveness is another area. Since you can develop very quickly and make modifications and change very quickly with our tool, you can be responsive to your clients and your customers and your managers in terms of the ability to quickly pivot, switch, and move the development quickly forward for them to achieve their business. Because you can produce more with less, you have an enormous amount of time and cost savings, and time is really the key factor there in terms of if you have a market opportunity, this allows you to meet that window and be successful with that. And then also not to be sort of the last on the list, but is reliability. Since key parts of your systems are compartmentalized, tested, and pre-done, you have a much higher level of productivity in terms of what you generate because you're not having to worry about lots of tons of code that you've generated that may have hidden issues in them. The code and the solutions that are generated by Alpha are very robust, very well tested, and allow you to move very quickly and have a reliable deployment. So those are some of the low code benefits from that standpoint. And the other key benefit, which I'll talk in more detail, is about the disconnected application. We built in or baked in the disconnected capability so you're not having to bolt on and create that yourself. So you get all of the benefits you hear in terms of disconnected applications, productivity, responsiveness, reliability, because of that factor there. Alpha is built on industry standards. We basically generate HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, and we connect to industry standard data sources such as SQL Server, Oracle, etc. The important thing about this is that we get to have two things. One is we work well in all environments. We are sort of a good citizen out there in terms of our ability to work on different browsers, different mobile platforms. But more importantly, it allows us to have the benefit as these platforms, specifically like JavaScript, becomes faster, as the ability for these platforms to do more, we get to ride that wave. And so your inherent solutions will become better, faster, and quicker and more responsive as the industry moves ahead. So you're not stuck with kind of off-the-shelf weird things. You're able to actually take advantage of all those industry standard pieces, which is important. And let me go ahead and adjust this here. Wait a second there. So one thing that I mentioned before is that with a traditional app generation, you're kind of stuck at a certain point. But with Alpha, we have a complete and total development environment inside of it that allows you to continue to develop, so you're not stuck getting to a point where you do that. And that includes the whole mobile disconnected capability, which I'm going to show you a little bit more in a few minutes there. We also have seamless mobile app generation. So from having a single code base, you can now deploy both on a desktop and a browser, but now through PhoneGap Build is generate native applications. And these native applications can be deployed on Windows Mobile, Android, or iOS. And a key factor of that is the fact that you have one code base, one tool to reach all of those different platforms. And we've tightly integrated the PhoneGap Build capability for two reasons. One, simplicity. It's a point and click and you're done kind of situation. You don't have to go through a whole cycle of extra coding to achieve this capability. Secondly, and very important, is that through the PhoneGap infrastructure, we can tap into the native APIs of the mobile devices. So that allows us to tap into the accelerometer, the camera, the GPS capability, all notifications, all those native capabilities in these mobile apps are now exposed and available to your Alpha Anywhere solutions, so you can really create very powerful native feel, look, and capability applications and not be limited to some arbitrary subset of capabilities. So, and you'll see it's tightly integrated where it's a matter of a couple clicks and you have a mobile app, and that includes all the mobile disconnected capability. Very powerful, very easy to use, and I think when people start, or when the people I engage with that use it, they're very pleased because they don't have to worry about, okay, I built this thing, now how do I get it on the mobile platforms? That's been thought ahead, and it works seamlessly there. And I have a little comment from the product manager in terms of that Alpha Anywhere really gives developers a simple and fast way to turn them into hybrid apps and deploy them, and we like to stress on that capability there. So why Alpha Anywhere? Fast solution generation using the low-code methodology with a lot of baked-in capabilities. We have a low learning curve, meaning you don't have to sit something like Xcode and learn how to become a professional programmer to deploy things. And last but not least is that we're platform independent. You have a single tool that allows you to deploy across desktops, web browsers, and mobile devices. So with that, what I'd like to do is take a moment just to check in with Dave and make sure everything's going okay on his side. And then secondly, I wanted to show you a very quick small demonstration to show you how quick and easy it is to develop a mobile disconnected application. Dave?
Great. Yeah, actually, except for a split second, just as you said that, when your audio went out.
Of course.
You're coming through loud and clear.
Okay.
So please go ahead.
Good, good. Well, I'm going to dive into our development environment. And to accelerate kind of this presentation, what I'd like to do is kind of show you how I can build a real quick mobile application and deploy it through PhoneGap in a matter of a few minutes here. So don't be off-put. We're in our development environment, and basically I'm in what we call our form builder. And just to kind of show you what it looks like real quick, I'll go ahead and put a piece of static text here. I don't want to, if there's any non-coders, don't want to scare you off there. But basically, we have a full development environment, and this is our UX control, which is our form builder. So you have a rich set of controls. You have things like calendars, maps, charts, a huge range of things that are available there. And then we use a layout technique here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, and then the different things. But let me go ahead and show you that I've created a little UX form, and I'm going to go ahead and run it. Nothing very exciting, but we have a built-in simulator in our system, so we can actually see from an iPhone what it would look like. By the way, we support multiple devices, so you can look at it, what it looks like on, say, a Nexus tab, or on an iPad horizontal. So it allows you to kind of see what the impact is of your application is there. So this app is very simple. You have a first page of this app, then by clicking the next button, it goes to the second page, and then the third page, and we call these panel cards. Nothing very exciting, but I'm going to show you in a matter of a few minutes how I can create a mobile disconnected CRM system. So I'm going to go back into my design information, and just to kind of give you a feel for what this is, that each of the panel cards that are showing have they're basically content holders. And so everything's done in a visual fashion. I'm not writing a lot of code, I'm pointing and clicking. So on my first panel card, what I'd like to do is I'm going to put a list of customers on that panel card. So I click on that panel card, and I use what's a built-in capability called a list. I'm going to add a list of customers. So we're going to have that on the first page right there. And then I'm going to go into my list of customers. Now, what's very powerful about Alpha, especially within enterprises, is that we can connect to many different data sources through our built-in functionality. So for our purposes today, I'm going to show you how I can connect into a SQL data source, which could be Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, whatever it happens to be. But also we have the ability to have custom data sources where you can connect into web services. You can call into class libraries in .NET. I mean, it's really a wide range of capabilities, so you're never going to be limited in terms of what you do. So with this, I'm going to go ahead, and I've already created a connection to a database. And I'm going to go ahead in this list. What I want to do is show a list of customers. So you'll notice that I've selected what data source I want to use, so it automatically presents to me what are the options. So I'm not writing a lot of SQL commands. Basically, I'm pointing and clicking. So our demonstration here is we want to use information from our customers table. Then I'm going to go in, and from that customers table, it gives me a list of available fields. And if this was a web service, I would see a list of available fields from the web service. So I'm going to go ahead and select them all just for us, and I'll explain this in a few minutes. And I'm just selecting all those items. Okay. I can filter this information. Alpha has a full-blown security framework built into it that will allow you to manage logins, and through that we can track who's logging in, what their permissions are, so we can set filters. All of that capability is a very rich ecosystem that allows you to build these applications both for the consumer but also in secure environments that you want to do. And then what I'm going to do is just go ahead and say I'm going to return the primary key. So I've defined what fields I'm pulling in from that SQL data source. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and say, okay, what information do I want to present to the user? So in this case, I'm going to select company name and contact name. And I click OK. And I'm going to go ahead and run my application in my working preview. And you'll notice that not very pretty yet, but it brought back from that database this information, and you'll notice that it's representing and handling all of the native kind of swiping gestures, the selection gestures. All of that is handled for you, so you're not spending time coding around controls. You're actually just utilizing the system. And what's nice too is that we tap into the native hardware acceleration, so when it's actually running on a mobile platform, you get a very smooth native feel for everything we do, so that the user has a positive experience. So not very pretty. So let me go back into my design, into my customers, and what I'm going to do is I want to present this as a freeform list layout. So I have sort of a blank thing. Now the other thing that Alpha does is that it ships with a lot of pre-made templates and other pre-made content, so that you can accelerate your learning curve and your initial implementation. So for in this case, I'm going to click on predefined templates. I'm going to select this template right here, and you'll notice it has a certain style. Then I'm going to say, okay, I want to show the company name and the contact name. Okay, and it's automatically generating the HTML. And again, back to industry standards, all of this is native HTML. So if you have HTML and CSS skills, you can leverage that within the system. So I click go on and go back into my working preview. And now we have a much nicer looking user interface with kind of bolding, secondary sizes, etc. And you can, and I'll come back to this in a little bit, but you have complete control over the styling, so you can make it match any branding requirements that you might have and improve significantly the user experience for it. But let's take the next step. That's kind of, okay, great, exciting, put a list of customers on the screen. But let's start digging into the real core of this, which is the ability for you to build a mobile disconnected application in a matter of a few moments. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into my list of customers, and I'm going to go to my list properties, and we have this new capability called Detail View. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that. And what that's done is it's enabled a whole set of features that allow me to manage data locally, edit it, synchronize it, all within there. And we have complete control over that, and I'll talk a little bit more after we go through the next segment, but you as a developer do not give up control because of the low-code methodology. Low-code gets you to where you need to go faster, but then you have complete control over the final stages so that you can make it work and act the way you want it, not the way that the tool was originally designed to be, the way we determine it. We want you to have that fit. So again, per my previous comment, is that we really want to increase the productivity of the individual developer. So I could go ahead and manually create a detail view, but we have these genies built into the system. So I'm going to go ahead and click down here to Detail View, Quick Setup Genie. I'm going to have the system create the controls to display the data. I'm going to also have the system create the buttons, and I'm going to click OK. It's asking me where I want to put those. Let's go ahead and put that in panel card number 2. And it's asking me, okay, I know what fields you already have in your list. Which ones do you want to use? I'm going to accept the default. I'm going to accept the default buttons also. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now, within a matter of a few moments, it's gone ahead and inspected my backend system in my list. It's created my fields for me, and it's also created a set of buttons and wired those up to handle mobile disconnected capabilities. Now, I want to do one other thing that's very important. I'm going to go to my list properties, and I have a magic, I like to call it magic, although that may not be a good term, but that says persist data to local storage. And I'm going to enable that. So now the system will automatically manage for me the local data, meaning it will extract the data I need, store it locally, and manage that for me without any coding. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll go into my working preview. The first thing I'd like to do is I'm going to change to a little larger screen, just so it's not a scrunch. So I'm going to go ahead and do iPad vertical. So now when I select an item and show the detail, you'll notice that it has automatically populated all of my fields with the information from that selection. So I'll go back here, select, say, around the horn, go to the next, and you'll notice that it's gone ahead and selected all of that information for me. And this is a live form, meaning it's going to handle any edits. So if I come in here and I'm going to change the region to region A, and I click Save, it has now saved that information. So it's sort of managing the editing process. So I'm going to go back to my first page, and it may be a little hard to see, but you'll notice on this record up in the right-hand corner, there's like a little orange caret. And actually, if I move to another one, it may be a little more visible. What this is saying is that an edit has been performed on this record locally, but has not been synchronized with my back end. And again, I have control over that. I could actually set up a mode saying if you're connected, go ahead and persist it. But for our demonstration, I'm keeping it here. But let me go ahead and go into this record here and go here, and I'm going to change this region to region. I'm going to click Save, and I go back, and you'll notice here also that it's managing both of those edits. And again, both of these edits are local. Now, since I persisted to local storage, and I could actually literally turn off my mobile device and go back in, and this data would still be available. So it allows me not only to manage things disconnected, but if anything happens in terms of a device, it reshuts off or runs out of battery, I don't lose the work that I've done. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go back into my detail record, and I have a button here called Synchronize. So when I click Synchronize, what is happening is it's taking all of the edits that have been done offline and pushing them back to the server. And you'll notice now that those little orange carets that are in the corner are gone, which mean now this piece of data is in sync with my back office. So I'm going to take a moment here. And I often, in my last demonstration, someone said, you know, take a pause here. And the reason why is what I just showed you, the ability to edit a record. Let's go ahead and edit this record. To then save it locally and then synchronize back to the database in any other kind of technology structure would take hours, days of coding. So what I've shown you in literally a few minutes here with other systems would take hours of coding. And that hours of coding is to basically provide a core capability which could be better used to work on new features and capabilities that your clients or customers or managers would like. So this looks very simple, and it's been made very simple by the Alpha system, but the power of this is enormous. And the power holds two things. One is you can focus more of your time on features and capabilities and less on plumbing, is what I like to call this. It's not the glamorous part, but it's very, very important. Secondly, now that you can manage things on a local storage, you can take care of situations where you're disconnected, where the device resets or is shut off. But more importantly, is since all of this is happening other than the synchronization on the local platform, the speed and interactivity with the user is enormous. And that's something that we tend to gloss over. But what's important to understand is that when things are happening local on a mobile device, things are happening fast because it's fast as the local JavaScript libraries and the local hardware. So you get this great benefit of not only having this powerful way to manage data disconnected, but also to improve the user experience with your users in your ability to give them a very fast, responsive, interactive environment. But you still have full control. And I want to speak on that for a couple moments here. Is that when I made this change, the system automatically, kind of saved the data locally. And you'll notice that the synchronize button now is highlighted saying, hey, I've got some data I need to synchronize. You have control over that. If you have a connection, you can tell the system automatically try and persist the data. B, you can also automatically detect when you're offline and online, so whenever you go back online in an offline situation, you can again have the system handle that update for them so the user is not being interrupted or bothered. And third, which is very important, is that synchronization is tough. You have situations where if you have especially a mobile workforce, the information I'm editing on this platform may have been edited by someone else somewhere on a different platform. And built into our system is the ability to detect conflicts, i.e. I change something, my coworker changed something, then the system gives us the hooks and the ability to ask the users how they would like to reconcile that data. And therefore, during the synchronization process, I can determine if there's conflicts, then determine what those conflicts are down to the field level, and then present to the user a sort of laundry list of how would you like to resolve this and have them do that. And that's all built into the system by within there so that you get complete control over that user experience and complete control to implement the policies of your company or your organization through this kind of capability here. So the capabilities for mobile disconnected are very, very, very powerful. It unlocks a lot of capabilities, but more importantly is it unlocks a whole new level of better user experience and better experiences for people using your tools and your mobile applications that you have built. But you don't sacrifice richness. As you noticed here, we have a certain look and feel. So built into our technology is the ability to use CSS to, oops, hit the wrong button, there we go. I can actually pick, say, like I'm targeting iOS 7. And now when I go into my working preview, I now get a kind of a flat iOS 7 kind of look and feel on my interface in terms of the buttons, the titling, how the things are set up. So I have complete control over the look and feel of my application through CSS, so I can tune it to however I want. You're not stuck with something that we would build into the system. We do give you a number of different CSS files so that you can get kickstarted. Another very important, I get this question often, is, well, how do you handle the issue of different size devices, but more importantly is different types of devices? The look and feel on a Apple product is going to be much different from an Android product. Well, built into our system is what we like to call our responsive layout capability. We have the ability to detect what kind of device, what kind of environment that you're working in. And with that, create a set of rules that say, okay, I'm in this environment, use this set of CSS. I'm on a tablet, okay, use this screen layout because this screen layout is more effective because it puts more things on the tablet. I'm on a phone, okay, use this one that's much more space efficient. But that's completely under your control, and the neat thing is you're not writing a bunch of code. You're basically selecting a rule and then saying, if this is, say, a iPhone, then set up these parameters in your user interface. And so we have a rich way to actually sort of sense what you're running on and then modify the platform accordingly. Now, that's in terms, so you not only have the power to quickly create these interfaces, and you'll notice there was zero coding going on in here, but also to be able to have that control to get the best look, feel, branding, and control. And then the last thing I'd like to show you real quick is built into the system is PhoneGap integration. So once you have your application running, and that's why we build in the simulator so you can put that together, I can do one thing first is I can do what's called remote test, where I can literally show a QR code, and you probably won't be able to hit this because I'm within this environment here, but I can actually scan this with my mobile device and then have it working within the web browser on the mobile device as a testing stage or capability there, so that I'm not only just using the simulator on our system, but also the mobile platform to do my testing. But once I reach that, then I can go into my PhoneGap capability, click PhoneGap, put in my PhoneGap account credentials, tell it which platforms I would like to target, Android, iOS, Windows Phone, and remember, because we have that ability with responsive, you don't have to worry about maintaining 3 code bases. You can basically create one application that interacts and understands what platform it's on and then modifies itself accordingly. And then I click save and upload a PhoneGap build. The system is compiled, put up onto PhoneGap, wrapped, and you get a QR code where you can download your application right onto your device, and you're off to the races. So we have tight integration within our system with PhoneGap. So it does two things. It makes life simpler in terms of generating that, but also if I select a specific platform, I have a complete interactive API to touch base with all of the native capabilities of the mobile platform, the camera, geolocation, notifications, and also a bunch of really cool third-party ones for barcode scanners, flashlight. I mean, I add a whole bunch of things here so that you're not limited, so that basically you can take your applications you've built and leverage the built-in capabilities of those mobile platforms, which keep getting bigger and better and better and better, to then enhance your application's capabilities for the user. So that's very straightforward for how to do PhoneGap, and it's a seamless process. You put in your account name, you select the parameters you want, you click go, and it uploads it. Real quick note on this is that people often, well, how do you get then into the app stores for either Google or for iPhone? It's no different from someone doing a native application. It's basically all you do is with Apple, you have to have a developer's agreement with them, and then once this has been developed, you can then submit it through their normal submission process. And what's nice about that is we have a proof point. In fact, you'll be welcome to ask Dan questions, but we have the Alpha Reader, which was built by Dan Bricklin, which was built with Alpha, deployed through PhoneGap, and is up and running and on the Apple Store, which you can download and then run as a iOS application. So it's very straightforward kind of scenarios. So that's kind of that's my sort of canned demonstration. And I know I packed a lot in a few minutes there, but as you can tell, a couple things. One, I was able to develop the solution and create it and have it running in a very short period of time. The key to that is that if I can do that, I can now put that in the hands of my users much quicker and get that real feedback to them saying, I like this, I dislike this, I want this, I don't want this. And thus you can go with more of an agile process for building your applications. So you don't meet with them and say, okay, I'll come back in a couple weeks after I've coded this up in Xcode, and then we'll be able to do this. The other that is very, very powerful about it is that I could take that and go ahead and deploy it as production worthy. So versus a wireframing kind of scenario where I could kind of create a prototype that doesn't do anything, then I still have to go through the whole coding process. Within that, I can kind of get the best of both worlds, create things quickly, get in the end users, but then still work on that code base for production development. And last but not least, as you saw, no coding or low coding allows you to generate the solutions quickly, but not sacrifice the capabilities of, say, mobile offline. And you saw within a matter of minutes, I generated a mobile disconnected application that's deployable on iOS, Android, Windows Mobile, and more importantly, is that it has it has the full capability to do things mobile and disconnected. And I didn't have to spend a lot of time, money, and energy into coding those pieces. It's built right in. And with that, Dave, that's kind of closed there. I know we have some questions, but more importantly, we have the esteemed Mr. Dan Bricklin available for answering the questions. And Dan is Alpha's CTO and really has been focusing heavily on understanding the mobile disconnected problem, the space, how to best implement it, and work with our incredible developers to build tools that allow you to do that simply and seamlessly.
That's great. We don't actually have a lot of questions, so either you've done a good job or people have fallen asleep. I'm sorry, Dan, but
no problem.
But if you have questions, by all means, please type them in now. Now is your chance to ask questions, especially about our offline capabilities. I'll give you a couple minutes. Okay, so
there are some URLs people can go to for more information on the disconnected if you'd like. This is Dan.
Hi, Dan. So our first question is, how long does it take to learn?
That's an excellent question. If it's okay, Dan, I take this one here. Because of the low-code process, it's actually a very compressed learning cycle. And we actually work with a sister company called Twin Peaks Research. And they have a set of training boot camps and training capabilities that literally within a matter of 7 business days, they can bring someone up to date and up to speed so they could be generating mobile applications. And then obviously to refine and improve your skills takes longer. But with this training and with the low-code approach, we can literally ramp a developer up within a week, couple weeks in terms of being able to generate what they need. And then there's a very rich set of demonstration videos, tutorial videos, and resources available through Alpha that allow people to continue to extend their knowledge and their capabilities so they won't get stuck as they're trying to build out their applications.
That's great. We have a question here from Garth, which says, how do you cope with conflict resolution?
Very good question. The system automatically detects conflicts. So it understands when it pulled a local data set. It manages that local data set. And then when it goes to persist that local data set back to the server, it compares it with the current server condition. And then what it does is if there aren't conflicts, it goes ahead and writes that data back into it. If there are conflicts, then it basically raises exceptions that you as a developer can then trap and understand what are the conflicts, and then present to the user the ability to say, override this or kind of scenario. And what's really cool about this is that the system is smart enough to understand even complex data structures that are, say, a set of 4 or 5 joined tables, so like a orders database or something like that. But the idea is that it's doing the management of kind of the state information for you, and then based on its understanding of the state information, it's then giving the developer the tools to then work with the users to set policy and address those conflicts. I hope that kind of gives a little better flavor.
Excellent. Nicholas asks if the system can be used to generate desktop applications.
And the answer is yes. PC desktop applications or Windows, and that's kind of the history of Alpha, was really oriented around that. So yes, you can still use the system to develop desktop applications. One very powerful feature is you can actually incorporate web content into those desktop applications. So you can almost create like a hybrid desktop web application. It's very powerful, very capable, and all built into the system.
Excellent. Ted asks if he needs to specify the data source.
Even the offline works. Even the offline works. For example, laptops that are disconnected will work.
Oh, that makes sense. All right. So if you're on a plane or a train or something like that and don't have Wi-Fi or cell connection, super. Ted asks if you need to specify the data. Hang on a second. Let me just repeat that question. Does he have to specify which data source he's going to use, or can he say that he's going to use Oracle and SQL Server? And maybe other sources?
Good question. You can have multiple data sources, so you're not limited to just one data sources. In fact, there's an outstanding video that shows how Bob Moore created a application to present information about the World Cup using off-the-shelf web services that provided that data. So you can use multiple data sources within your system, and so you can use them in different parts of your application. And then based on those different data source types, then the system will handle either the disconnected or give you the hooks to manage that disconnected synchronization yourself.
Excellent. Michael asks if you can use SQLite to make completely disconnected mobile applications.
Well, that's the cool thing about Alpha is you don't need SQLite. You don't need any other native data source. Alpha manages that data for you, so you get to move away from having to have a separate piece of data storage technology. Because really what it's doing is it's using the local storage of the mobile device to sort of keep the information there, but it manages it for you. So it's really unnecessary to have SQLite, and you can create a full disconnected solution right within Alpha.
Excellent. Matt asks, how much data can you store locally on a mobile device? And he's thinking specifically about pictures. Can we talk about pictures and about limitations?
Yeah, we have within the mobile device, we can access the camera. So you can either access the camera, and there's a great demonstration video of this. We can access the camera to take pictures, and also we can access the local camera roll. Obviously, the device will ask the user for permission before doing so to make sure our app can do that. But really, the answer on that is it's limited to the amount of data available on your mobile device. So there aren't any hard and fast
Can I answer a little more about that? Yes.
Yeah.
In the initial release of the offline, I assume we're asking about offline because when you're online, the images are immediately uploaded to the server, and they may be resized as you may specify, so they won't take up much space. But in the offline case, they would be that is something that we're working on to take advantage of with PhoneGap to allow you to have an unlimited amount depending on how much your device has. Currently, you would be, if you weren't using PhoneGap, you'd be restricted to the amount of memory that's available to the to local storage, which is just a few megabytes, about 5 megabytes on most systems. So, so it would be for relatively few pictures or relatively low resolution pictures. We are actively working on that, and through the use of PhoneGap, you'll be able to use the full amount of memory of your machine for temporary storage of the photos before uploading at a later time.
Excellent. And Dan, while you're there, we have a question addressed specifically to you, asking sort of what the difference is between how Alpha handles offline versus other systems.
Okay, that's one that can get pretty detailed, and I actually have 2 blog posts that explain that, and you can send out the links to the Alpha blog that points to those on my website.
Yep.
But to make it most simply, there are 2 common ways of handling offline. One way is to as mentioned before, bolt on another database on the local device, such as from Sybase or their CouchDB or others, and have your application interface directly to that local database, which in turn it synchronizes to a database somewhere else, and then somehow that database gets synchronized to your main corporate database. The issue with that way of working with this extra local database is that if there are conflicts, if it can even detect things like write conflicts, and you want the user to be able to participate in resolving the conflicts, that gets very complex because the database has to be able to then notify the program, which may not be running at the time, and be able to tell the program, get the program into the right state. And that's why people say it can take 3 times as long to develop an offline application. Another way of doing it, which is common, is to hand code into both the application and the server code, remembering all the changes that are made when somebody does the transactions offline, sending just those modifications, the transactions, having the server update the local the database that the server is connected to appropriately, and sending back any error indications for the client to be able to handle, and then the client having UI code to handle those errors. We take, with Alpha Anywhere, the latter approach. It automatically builds all that complex code that would take you 3 times as long to build and if you had to do it by hand. But because Alpha Anywhere constructs both the server code and the client code, it can take care of the tedious coding to keep track of modifications that are made when offline, and to appropriately format those and send them off to the main database, and handle the conflicts, rolling back if necessary transactions that may have been part of a multi-table transaction to be able to handle the transactions that you do. It's pretty sophisticated. if you if you go to the Alpha software site and go to the section about offline, you'll see links to some of the stuff that we've written explaining these differences and some of the videos showing it in action.
For those of you unaware, the Alpha Software website is brand new as of Sunday evening, so you will find links there that you may not have seen last week. We have another question here for either one of you guys, I guess, and it says basically that testing in a simulator is all well and good, but how can you test it to locally on a mobile device?
I'll go ahead and grab that.
Thanks.
Let me go ahead and go here, make sure I haven't lost everybody here. The way I approach it is there's really like almost like a 4-phase methodology. Your first phase is what's called working preview, which is our built-in simulator, and it's all contained within Alpha there. But then we also have something called live preview, and live preview uses your local browser, and it gives you kind of like one step closer in terms of fidelity. And then step 3, which is really where you get into there, is we have this remote test. And when you click remote test, what it does is it basically allows you to then use your mobile device through its web browser and talk to your, let's say it's a laptop you're doing development, your development system, and so then you're running on the local device, and therefore then you're getting the experience the user will get when they go out into the real world, albeit you're using your local development machine as the server to kind of interact with the back end. And then last step would be then to go ahead and use the PhoneGap build process to go and upload it and execute and create an app that you can use there. And the cycle time for PhoneGap is literally about 10 to 15 seconds for it to connect, another maybe 10 to 20 seconds for it to generate the app, and then there's the download time to bring the app down. So within a matter of 30 seconds to a minute, you can have an updated app running on your local machine, and then you can start testing it within there. So there's sort of like a staged approach, and as you get closer and closer to each of these steps, you can then use one, and each one's got a higher level of fidelity in terms of what the end user will finally experience with your application.
Excellent. Here's a very good question from Rohan, who asks, does the offline work with Alpha's current security framework?
Yes.
Okay.
There's actually, I mean, it does. It takes full advantage of that framework. There are actually some pre-built components that are mobile-oriented to kickstart your abilities so that you don't have to create everything from scratch. But everything you utilize in terms of your security framework works well in the mobile environment there.
So the question is, what about security credentials for logging in while offline? Is that handled, or can that be done?
I'm going to let Dan handle that one.
Okay. Let's see. The security there are a couple of times when you need the security credentials. Sometimes you want security credentials because you're connecting your mobile device directly to some service somewhere else. And in that case, you would have the security credentials on the mobile device, which is not a good idea. In the other case, you would usually use a proxy. You would go through the Alpha server and using Xcode or JavaScript or any of the languages supported by the server, do the login there and keep your credentials on the server, and we recommend that. If you can't connect to the Alpha server, there's a good chance you can't connect to other servers, so you don't lose anything per se by doing that. But I hope this is, I mean, when people talk about the credentials, I assume this is what they're talking about, because that's a common thing, is the credentials necessary to get to various web services.
Excellent. Another one we have here. Oh, someone is asking sort of about the free trial version of Alpha Anywhere. I was wondering how many of the features are you able to test in that version?
All of the features. It's the full version of Alpha. The only limitations are in regards to the number of connections for, say, a server environment is limited, but it's a full-blown, full-featured, so you can build everything you can with the real product.
Excellent. Nicholas asks, can you generate conflict resolution rules instead of having the user manage the conflicts?
And the answer is yes. Oh, go ahead. I'll let Dan handle that.
Yes. There are a large number of points where you can put your own code to be able to change the way in which it works. You can have it both server side, either server side or client side. You could use a combination where your code says, in this case, I know what to do, but in that case, I don't know what to do, and I'll let the user decide. You could fire off an email, for example, to send to a supervisor to resolve the conflict. You can write either client-side or server-side code to handle these situations. We just happen to have a default that allows you to be able to have the user make the decision by showing the value they would get that is currently there versus the value they were trying to set.
Excellent. Another question is, how do you handle secure payments? Are there any merchant services that Alpha endorses?
At this time, we have a built-in control, and I have to double check the actual specific, but we are also working on a WorldPay integration at this time, which will be coming out in the near future. So we have an existing payment capability, and God, what's that?
With Authorize.net, I believe.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, and so that exists in the system now, and then you have the ability to use WorldPay. Because we are an open system in terms of how we integrate, you can integrate with other systems such as Stripe and some other ones that are available out there, because they're basically JavaScript code libraries you can integrate into your system and then leverage that way. So you're not just limited to what's built into it through our existing system.
That's great. Time for a couple more questions. Someone asks, how can you test the deployment with the trial version? Do you need to own the full server in order to make that work?
I'm sorry, it clicked off for a second.
Oh, sure. The question is, how do you test deployment with the trial version?
You can operate using your development machine as a quote-unquote server, but it will be limited in terms of the number of concurrent connections that are available. And that's probably the best way to kind of set up and do an initial test from that standpoint.
Excellent.
So what that means is you could have a few users at a time actually using it, and so you wouldn't deploy it to 100 people, but you could deploy it to a handful.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Let me just see what else we've got here. Secure payments. We have a question about video. Person asks, does the platform have rich video features? Could you rebuild a product kind of like Vine or Instagram or something like that?
The application has a video library functionality for the management and display of videos through there, and again, you have access to the through the PhoneGap API, the native API to the camera system.
Excellent. Yes, there's also the
in
video.
Which case, yeah, the pictures are treated as video. Videos are treated like pictures. You have to deal with the amount of memory that you upload and the upload size that you'd be handling.
Mm-hmm. But if it's a fully connected app and not offline, that's not as big an issue, I would imagine. The question, how do we manage drop-down lists and lookup lists when you're offline? Can those be pre-populated?
Yes, you would want to pre-populate them. Are you there?
Yes.
You would want to pre-populate them.
Okay.
In fact, for the offline, you would like to have a lot of what you're doing being static, and though you can load that dynamically on demand, and that's one way of handling it.
And one final question: are there any tech support forums regarding troubleshoot or known bug fixes?
Yes, we have a alpha message board that is a community of very driven alpha developers and is a very effective means to interact with other developers and be able to gather that information. And we continue to build our support organization to support the increased level of developers that are joining our platform.
Excellent. Well, that ends our time here. If you have additional questions, please feel free to send them to guides, Guides, at alphasoftware.com. I'd like to thank Dion McCormick and Dan Bricklin for joining us today, and I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. We hope we've answered your questions, and again, we can answer some more of them if you send us an email, and we look forward to seeing you at a future webinar. You can look for a recording of today's session at www.alphasoftware.com/events. It should be posted by Thursday. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.